Okay, everyone. So thank you for joining us today on our webinar as we run through different options for a retail strategy at your hospital campus, something that a lot of hospitals have been really focusing on for the last decade or so. So we are going to start today with a little bit about the retail healthcare continuum and where we're going to be focusing on. So the retail healthcare continuum really includes a bunch of bricks and mortar as well as digital type solutions. Today we're going to be looking at the gift shop, pharmacy, some wellness, some in the urgent and retail care space, as well as some other retail services. The goal of today's webinar is to have you leave with some new and fresh ideas on opportunities to utilize your hospital's lobby and retail space for retail type services, while helping to recognize that as hospitals increasingly need to cater to the consumer type patient population, hospitals are really looking for areas that are designed to delight your patients, delight your visitors, provide convenience to your employees, comfort your patients, and overall just simplify people's lives while maintaining a healthy message. About a decade ago, Henry Ford Hospital System in Detroit built a brand new hospital in West Bloomfield, and they had a very big focus on retail operations in that design process. The CEO of the hospital has since said that this retail objective within the hospital more than met his expectations. It was able to achieve double-digit profit margins, as well as provide a great way to attract new patients to the hospital and increase their overall brand awareness within the market. I like to look at how you can compare hospital lobbies to what you see in commercial buildings, downtown urban areas, large office towers, etc. And that is that many of them have some form or multiple forms of retail in their entryways. And this is for a few reasons. One, it's a very good way to bring incremental rents that are also fairly attractive into the building. It's also a great way for them to attract new tenants because employees of the organizations that work upstairs, they rent those spaces and they like to be able to offer their employees the convenience of retail options. This could include things like cafes and dining, hair salons, clothing stores, etc. Hospitals haven't generally looked at their space in the same way that commercial landlords have. But when you think about it, hospital space could be easily monetized in exactly the same way that commercial buildings are, while also providing a space that gives satisfaction and enjoyment to your employees and visitors and patients, provides them a convenient place to meet their retail needs. Another point on this slide is, if any of you were around in the 80s and traveled, think about airports back then. Of course, this is a time before we needed to remove our shoes and take our shampoos out of our bags. But think about airports in the 80s versus today, when you had one gift store usually sitting outside near baggage claim, maybe buy a Coke and a packet of chips there, versus the retail options that you have today in the airport markets. Hospital lobbies really have what today's mall and owners really envy, and that's thousands of people walking through them every single day. Importantly, hospital visitors are asking for retail outlets. So in a Harvard Business Review survey of 3,000 hospital patients and visitors, they found that the presence of retail and other outlets offered great value to their visit, and they really appreciated them being available in a time of need. And the next bullet point here points out from that same survey that the number and variety of shops at the hospital was the second strongest driver after the expertise and friendliness of the staff of that patient's or visitor's overall impression of the hospital and their willingness to recommend them to others. So starting off really here and looking at concepts, we're going to look at first a few concepts that are really just a basic part of hospital retail. You might have them already, maybe some ways to improve them or to consider them as, really things that should be at pretty much every hospital. That's the hospital gift store to start with. So as far as most gift stores are concerned, candy and snacks will typically be the dominant sales category. Having this well merchandised is very important because an attractive display, it sends your customers a message that your shop is well cared for, has good standards, and provides good value. By adding attractive design elements to a gift shop, things like you see here with the very bright colored candy in jars that all look the same, it's a great way to draw people into the store and really, encourage future purchases. Next here we have jewelry, accessories, and apparel, another important part of any hospital gift store, mostly because females both dominate retail spending and also typically make up the majority of a hospital's workforce. So this category is really crucial, and again, another way to draw people into the store while maximizing revenues on higher profit margin items. You'll find that candy tends to be low margin. This type of thing is much higher margin. So the types of success that we're seeing with this category really comes when the store managers really do things like pair items, hats, and scarves on a mannequin, really show the customer what they can do with these items. It adds pop to the overall space. And you have, of course, seasonal themes, bright colors during spring, winter hues, darker hues during winter. And last category that we'll top on here, there's a lot of different categories that we look at. I'm just trying to show you a few of the really big ones when you're looking at hospital gift store success. And that's seasonal display. This is probably the most important category to put in your entry areas and your exterior windows. Things like Valentine's Day displays, 4th of July, Christmas, etc. Having large organized seasonal displays is a great way to really have people show interest in the store, bring in new customers. You do want to locate all of your products together, the similar products together. So for example, Mother's Day items together and not mixed in with regular store merchandise. It's also important to quickly move out seasonal items for seasons that have passed. For example, when Easter has passed, take them away from your seasonal display, either put them in storage, sell them off by putting them in a sales area. Next, we're going to talk a little bit about outpatient pharmacy. I know that some of you have been on my outpatient pharmacy webinars in the past. It's a really very significant trend that we've seen in hospitals who are locating outpatient pharmacies within their lobby or their retail space. And there are many reasons why. Two I'm going to talk about today here is one, a meds to beds program. As hospitals become increasingly focused on lowering readmissions and value-based care, study after study has shown that having a pharmacist or a tech deliver a patient's medication before they leave the hospital will generally reduce readmission rates by more than 50%. This is almost a third, that's because almost a third of patients don't typically stop and pick up their medication on their way home from the hospital, end up back in a week or two with things like infection because they didn't do something as simple as fill their antibiotic. Another benefit of this kind of service is that it's also had some pretty big and positive impacts on patient satisfaction scores. Most hospitals that we've worked with have seen patient satisfaction scores rise by about 30% with these types of programs. But honestly, one of the biggest benefits to the hospital with an outpatient pharmacy is actually employee savings. The image on this slide shows what a hospital HR department paid for a 30-day supply of moxicillin versus what the outpatient pharmacy on campus was reimbursed, $26.90 in this case versus over $90. That $70 spread can be kept by the hospital if the hospital starts to utilize outpatient pharmacy on campus and really use the pharmacist's expertise to help design their benefit plan. It's often also not realized that hospital systems that have their employees fill their medication on campus are able to utilize own use or GPO pricing for their employee prescriptions, which can also help the hospital save about 20% on employee drug purchases. Then you have specialty savings. As specialty drugs become more and more prevalent, these savings can really prove to be quite significant. So again, two aspects of outpatient pharmacy. There's a lot more. We just don't have a lot of time today to discuss the rest of them, but if you have interest, please let me know. I'm happy to walk through it with you. The next slide we have on dining. I'm not really touching on the cafeteria space here, more of what you might expect to see in the retail space. One of the biggest areas right now is grab-and-go concepts. Hospitals across the country are really actually dominated by Starbucks, Au Bon Pain, and Panera. I think there are actually about 60% of all the Au Bon Pains in the country are actually located in hospitals and airports. One thing that these brands do, especially like concepts like Starbucks, is to provide immediate familiarity, somewhere your employees, visitors, and patients can go and know what they're going to get with pricing expectations. Further, concepts like Au Bon Pain and Panera really fit with the parameters of being able to get a meal at an affordable price while also being able to have healthy options. Kiosks like the Starbucks one you see here in the background is the kind of thing that's a really great strategy when you have space constraints, which I know a lot of hospital lobbies do. So now I'm going to move on to some of the more creative and interesting ideas that we've worked on with hospitals as part of their overall retail strategy. The first one is actually a wellness studio. This wellness studio you see here in California offers things like yoga to its employees, something that the nurses really asked for. Didn't need a lot of space. It gave nurses somewhere that they really wanted to go that could practice yoga and meditate. But it also had the other benefit of really giving them an option to start doing things like prenatal classes for their local community. They really wanted to start marketing a lot more and attract a lot more of their maternity market to the hospital. So something like this on campus was a great way to do that. Also, another area that's using it is physicians that are trying to help their patients with stress management. And also the oncology business is using it for their cancer patients. A few of the hospitals have salons, hair and nail salons. It's usually on a small scale, typically always within their retail space, something again that hospital employees like to use for their own convenience. It's also not unusual for one of the hairdressers to go up and visit the patient's bedside and do their hair, make them feel a little better while they're in the hospital, or even before they're discharged and want to go home feeling refreshed. Again, it's also a great thing for people who are visiting the patients and looking for something to do while the patient that they're with is receiving treatment. Next, we actually have a cancer boutique. It's a big driver for hospitals at the moment with an oncology focus. These are really typically lovely stores, very well designed. You feel very comfortable and peaceful walking into. Usually great staff, generally with some kind of fitting expertise, offering their special, sort of the specialist advice for cancer products. Some of the products you see here, hats, scarves, wigs, clothing, skin creams for radiation treatment, anti-nausea products. This is somewhere that the hospital's oncology patients can go for peace of mind, somewhere that they feel comfortable they're getting the right advice about the kinds of things they're going to need during their treatment. It's also a great way to build a branding and awareness of the oncology services that your hospital offers. Final concept here is actually one we've seen fairly recently. It's fairly new concept, and that's hospitals actually putting walk-in and urgent care clinics within the retail space. Sometimes it's a room off the pharmacy. Sometimes it's a much bigger area like you see here. this, again, is very much catering to employee convenience. The kinds of people that are really using this are employees who might need a prescription refill. Maybe they're suffering from allergies and need a prescription, or have a rash they want to have looked at. The kinds of things that you don't need to go to an ER for, something that you can still go to work with. You just really need to be seen. So employees are big users of this. It was actually put in, though, to really help to start relieve the waiting in the emergency room, helping to take the less acute patients out of the ER, have them seen somewhere like this instead, and really help them become more aware of the hospital's retail and urgent care options in the community. So again, another brand awareness type service line. Okay, so this is where we step in, and that is helping hospitals look at your overall retail and consumer strategy, how it's going to impact your next 5 to 10 years, and how important, the proper execution and development of a business plan is to executing a retail strategy. Business planning is probably the single most important element of the overall process. Good business plan, depending on the size of your hospital, we've seen them achieve anywhere from $1 million in revenue up to large multi-hospital systems, hundreds of millions in revenues. It's imperative to understand what your consumer wants, what their choices will be, and what kind of services they're looking for. And this is the kind of data we have from working with hundreds of hospitals all across the country. And more specifically, as we relate to today's webinar, how do you maximize your on-campus revenues? A little bit about us here. Work with over 400 hospitals, from very small hospitals all the way up to the country's largest hospital systems. Typically, they engage us to look for new retail revenue streams across different service lines. So next steps here, you're going to have a survey at the end of the webinar that will ask you if you would like to receive a copy of today's slide deck. So please say yes if you'd like to receive that. We also have two options. If you're interested in a call, we typically have two options that we offer. One is just for gift shops, 1 day on site, very small fee for having us come on site and really just look at your gift shop space, give you some ideas on new merchandising strategies, product strategies, things you might be missing out on, technology, etc. And then we have the much bigger retail business plans that we do, multi-month, very in-depth analysis of the kinds of services and retail that could be on your hospital campus. Contact details in the top right, and again, a survey at the end will help me know who to send the slides to. So other than that, thank you for joining us today. I hope I've given you some new information on your hospital's opportunities for retail, and have a great rest of your week.